In your ability to attempt to predict, do you predict that the Russians will increase their military activity in eastern Ukraine? And do you support us supplying weapons defensive weapons to the Ukrainians?
Chairman, thank you for the question. I literally just hours ago got off the phone with our ambassador in Ukraine to get his latest reading of what he sees happening along the front, because we get reporting consistently that the number of attacks are up. In an unclassified format, the reporting I see is in the last 24 hours, over 71 attacks. And in the last week, over 450 attacks along the line of contact. The report from the ambassador is there are several disturbing trends in those attacks, and that is that some of them are now happening in places that were heretofore quiet, closer to Lugansk, and also that the type and style of the attacks reflect the weapons that were banned heretofore before, caliber, size, and range. I believe that Russia will dial up and down the pressure along the line of contact to keep Kyiv under pressure to meet their part of the agreements first, which, as you know, are tough for Kyiv to do. And so I do believe that we will see Russia using the line of contact and the activity on the line of contact to keep unhelpful pressure on Kyiv.
And finally, do you believe we should provide defensive weapons to?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I have said to you before, in this committee before, that I believe that we should not take any tools off of the plate as we address this problem. Russia is using all the tools of a nation's power against Ukraine. We use that simple model of dime, diplomatic, informational, military, and economic. And we see Russia bringing pressure in all of those. And so in the military environment, I do not think that any tools should be necessarily precluded. And I've made my recommendations along those lines.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, General, for your excellent testimony. And I know when you were here last year, there was a real concern that these separatist elements, actually Russian surrogates, would even surge beyond the Minsk line and indeed go for some major urban areas, particularly coastal ports. Because of your activity and, more importantly, because of the courage of Ukrainian forces, that has been stopped. But as you point out, there is continued activity, military activity. But there seems to me, based on my trip last September, a shift to political destabilization of the regime in Kiev. And that requires not only a military response, but also reforms by the Ukrainian government, support by the international community. Can you talk about this other dimension of the fight, which at this point might be more critical? Your comments, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. And in my conversation with the ambassador this morning, I just would point out again in an unclassified setting that there appears to be some probing actually going back and forth across the line now. But it's nothing like a major military muscle movements. And clearly, the path that you describe is a very tough one and a critical one for the Ukrainian government. As we all know, the current leaders of Ukraine were elected in a reform environment, and their own people expect reform as a part of their performance. And as you, I think, correctly lay out, what we see now is Russia bringing broad pressure on that government to force problems in this change. And I must say, and I've said this before, it's really hard to do major change in your government when your nation is in the field fighting for its existence. And so having to affect these changes while the military is defending forward is also tough. And I believe that by slowing and discrediting the government, that there is a lot of pressure by the people and encouraged by these actions that you mentioned. And it is, I think, a very worrisome matter.
Thank you.